Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another monthly event of Good AI, the Ethical and Trustworthy AI Forum, where we are starting something new. And it will be a series of keynotes that we would try to bring world leaders and people who care about ethics and biases and standards in AI. This will be hopefully a useful session for all our audiences. We'll try to do it in various different formats and try various things. So we are experimenting first time with this space. So yeah, give us your feedback and we'll try to improve on it. So I'll pass on to Sangdo to introduce our first speaker of the series. Sangdo, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Vikram. And thank you, Aurelie, again. Folks, we have Aurelie Jacquet, who has a lawyer background in civil law and actually new to the world of standard and originating from France, who is also the chair for the Mural Community for International Standards of AI and IEEE. And we're really looking forward to seeing her take on the international standards and her involvement within them.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you. So thank you very much, both, for the kind introduction. Very happy to be the first speaker of this event on the TheGoodAi. As Sangdo was saying, I'm participating in the two leading international initiative of the IEEE on the certification of AI that's currently underway and has a year to go. And I'm also working with Standard Australia and mirroring the work of ISO on AI.
Thank you, Aurelie. So I think the first question that we want to ask you is about how did you get started and how do why AI with your background, and how did you get involved in this space?
Sure. So I've been working for algorithmic traders or high frequency traders for 10 years. And so algorithm and the trouble with them is something quite familiar. I saw how they crashed the market. I saw they try to take advantage how the algorithm were beating everyone to the market, which was not an issue of itself, but the crashing most definitely, and how the regulators struggle with understanding algorithmic traders and how the algorithms were working. And we had about a good 3 to 5 years of education work to do with the regulator as part of teaching them what happened and really the advantage of algo trading, and also that to help really the regulator to come up with and it was just not our firm, it was also all the other. That's what happened with pretty much all the algo trading firm or the clearing firms that were representing them, like pretty much talking to the regulators and finding a way to regulate them appropriately. So that took a few years. Now you'll see there's still some in the UK, the latest regulation about algo traders and AI. So as part of this, when AI came about, I just thought, well, the ethical part was kind of obvious. If you see what an algorithm can cause in a market, which is a closed, heavily regulated area, if you do the same in a market that's less regulated, where the environment is open, you see the issues. And I guess, again, it's not the algorithm that was ever a problem with me. I'm pretty for the technology. It's more the way it's used or misused. And it's more from a lawyer, it's more the negligence aspect or the, let's say, the malevolent aspects that become more important. And so I learned a bit more through. As I say, I'm a lawyer from background, so I got interested to learn a bit more about the technology, understand what it can and cannot do. Obviously, laws and regulation are slow to come, so I took the initiative to look to standards, which still have a 3 years turnaround, but still help provide an industry solution. And what I saw missing with the algo traders and what we went through from the regulation perspective, it's a great technology. You want to have all the benefit of it, and the best way to get that is to get all the industry to start thinking about the way it should benefit them without having a substantially negative impact on people, which, because the motivation generally for companies being, hey, brand, or obviously the legal aspect, which I'm very familiar with. So that's what initially led me to standards. And so I organized in Australia for like our first, I went to a number of CEOs of different companies and asked them to support the proposal for standards to have a standard on ethics and AI. And when the international standard got created, that was in October 2018, then I got the right incentive to get all the work started. So that's why now Australia is participating in the international standard on AI.
Wow, great. Yeah. So, what are some of the roadblocks that you encountered initially, and why there is such a big need right now? We see Europe has done a study recently. IEEE is heavily involved since the beginning. What are some what are some of the trigger points that you're seeing in a world stage that are driving so much of attention to this topic?
Well, you've got a lot of hypes, obviously, like let's say what's getting attention to the topic of AI is obviously the multi-million-dollar return, the fact that you can automate a lot of action. So obviously for businesses, it's got a significant benefit. For me, what I see was my observation is the main issue I see, and that's was the implementation of the technology, but that's not specific to AI. Within the company, it's a tendency to apply the same, to use the same technology to do the same process rather than to recreate new process. So that's one of the roadblocks I see within the companies, the issues they have with the innovation. And I think also what I see as a problem, and that's also why I went to standards, is the fear. With AI, there's a lot of unknown, funny enough, just like blockchain, really. And therefore, especially in the financial services, because there's so many regulation, you have to be careful about the implementation. So to have standardization that helps with adoption of the technology in a responsible manner, for me, was just a benefit, because you hit the two goals with one stone. You get the minimum standard for adoption, and you also have a standard that's flexible enough, because it's at the international level, to allow for each country to adapt it to its own parameters. So it's also give you the basis to develop a responsible AI, which I think is a good start. Especially you'll see the conversation, as I say, in different countries. It's not for industry to industry looks for governments to make the rules, but especially in this field, government is seeking lots of consultation from different parties. So I think the benefit again of standards, it's joining together standards. Standards is joining together the government aspect, but also the industry aspect and the university aspect. There's a fair few people from academia that are involved in the standard development. So it's really the right place to develop a common approach that is practical. And another roadblock, ethics is a very popular topic at the moment. 2 years ago, it wasn't. So now you can't, you really can't switch off your TV or switch it on without seeing ethics on every second page. So the main issue is the principles were very useful, but now we've got about, I think, more than 52 different principles across many different countries. The principles are not necessarily specific to AI for the good reason that it's aimed for people. The big problem is now it's a bit much of a noise, and the next step to how you implement those principles is a difficult part. So the roadblock is hard to implement those principles. This is still a big piece of the international conversation. Obviously, how do you make sure that those principles are compatible when going from one country to another, and who's going to ensure compatibility? So for me it's particularly interesting because it's like recreating a mini international legal system in a funny way. So looking at cross jurisdiction again, like what is acceptable, what's not, but obviously it's much more beyond law. It's also about the ethics, the branding, etc. So that's absolutely that's the part of the work that I really enjoy.
Great. Thank you, Aurelie. My question for you is, what is the level of support from the government of Australia are you getting so far with all this?
So Australia at the moment, the Australian federal government did ask 3 organizations to look at the roadmap for AI and also for ethics. One is done by the Australian Human Rights Commission. So there's one consultation that's led by them. There's also another consultation that's led by CSIRO, which is a national research as well, federal research body of Australia. And the last one is by standards. So standards is an integral part of the projects that the government is developing, because it's involved in the consultation on AI that the government's organizing. So at the moment we had, as I say, 3 consultation papers that's been done by each of those bodies. Sorry, the Human Rights Commission did 2 papers, and we did the final one. So
great. And it's really nice to hear that Australia is being proactive by creating these entities with systems in places to steer AI in the right direction for the country. And I believe it's safe to say globally, this entire world is really excited about AI. What we're, optimistically thinking is AI for business automation, do more faster, potentially cheaper, more automation. And then we have large titans in our area like Microsoft using AI for humans, for disabled folks to, have a level playing field. But the one topic that no one really talks about, and especially, you know, the criminal mind will never talk about it, but is there any bad AI that you are anticipating that might be up and coming?
Not by AI, again, negligence or very malevolent people using AI in either very stupid way or just, as you say, like really malevolent. So again, any technology can be used in a good or bad way, and this is no difference. It's just multiplied. Like with an algorithm or neural network, you can effectively have affect a lot more people at once. Hence the reference to the crashing the market, right? So now you've got, if you give that technology to someone that doesn't know how to use it, you give them the possibility to crash not one market but multiple market. That's problematic if they're negligent, if they're malevolent, yes. And I guess we have one professor, English professor, but he lives in Australia now, Toby Walsh. He's been petitioning and talking at the UN about banning AI weapons. So that's definitely one use that is fought strongly against, because obviously it gets rid of the issue is with obviously if you follow the Asimov law, it should never be considered. So that, and he got now the signature of about more than 100 scientists worldwide, including Elon Musk. So that's one. In algo trading again, so that's just more so algorithm, not what I call AI. You see people that actually could easily pick pattern of the market, and as a result they could actually manipulate the market in the way that was forbidden by the rules. But funny enough, and actually the CFTC is extradited to traders for that, because they didn't have the technology a few years back to pick up this trade, but now they do. So see, good AI fighting bad AI. So obviously I'm not a huge fan of social scoring, but I would not just allocate that to China. You see, the UK's got is one of the country with that's got more and more cameras on the street. So not that they're doing facial recognition, but surveillance is becoming more and more prevalent. Lots of technology is imported from China to do surveillance, but there's also some created locally. And I think in this case you have to be particularly careful in justifying it. So for me, I'm more considering within the corporate world the governance of AI. So I'm more looking at those negligence and malevolent issues within the governance of AI, or effectively the fact that obviously if you have a black box, then you don't know the outcome. So it's a bit more difficult to use AI, and it can cause some issues. So how do you make sure when you use AI, the impact is calculated and appropriate? So that's what's important to me. From the hacking perspective, there's a very long list, but this is less the aspect I'm looking at, because this is more on the cybersecurity perspective.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Aurelie. And so, we we are a very small group of individuals trying to influence whoever we can, and we've kept a very finite and realistic goal for ourselves that we want to just influence one person at a time to do the right thing when it comes to making choices or understanding biases and things of that nature. How could we, some of us who are interested in partnering or participating in such a manner, would you see the Good AI starting here in Seattle? I mean, play any role at a stage where we could look at advice from your side or help out with anything on the standard side? I mean, do you see us playing some role or collaborating together at some stage?
So just two things. So from the standards perspective, actually in the US, the standards are one doing quite key work. There's been a number of consultations that's been done by the US body of standards. So that would be definitely something worthwhile being to be involved in. So that I explain, you have the international standard, and each country participate in it. The US is already participating in the international standard on AI. So the easiest way to actually get involved in that work would be to start speaking with them. They may have some events happening, or as I said, they had the consultation just recently. So that would be the first port of call. For us, we, as I say, separately from the work I do on standards, we have a group of people called Ethics for AI and Automated Decision Making. We're going to become a non-for-profit called Ethical AI. And yes, in that respect, definitely happy to partner. But again, it's down the track looking at what would be the best way to interact and develop the relationship.
Great. And any concluding messages for people who are listening and who are just part of this keynote?
I think from my perspective, the ethics conversation is just getting started. To make it impactful, the key message is not to add to the noise, but to find practical solution that can help companies. And that's by looking currently at the problems that your companies have, especially when they're looking at AI, and start to think about that problem in a very practical manner. So that's what I've been doing in Australia. So how do you, the next stage, how do you apply those principles and make it a positive and possible message for industry to implement AI responsibly?
Great. Thank you so much, Aurelie. Thank you so much for the time. We wish we could have you live talking to the audience and taking questions. Sangdo and I just thought of some questions that would be that have been discussed in our various events when we meet. But this has been super useful. We really thank you for your time and appreciate you taking this time during your vacation to talk to us. I hope France is good. Thank you so much for spending this time with us.
My pleasure. Maybe hope to see you in Seattle or in Sydney one day.
Thank you.